Okay. Greetings, everybody. Okay. Now, I tell you the same thing I tell you every time I start one of these off. It's been wonderful chatting with y'all in the chat. I love seeing where everybody's from and seeing the international audience we have. But I will not answer questions from the chat most of the time. Matter of fact, most of the time the chat stays minimized, so I can't see it, because it's just a distraction for me. So if you have questions, please ask them in the Ask a Question. Look at that, the number's going up already. And I will get to those as soon as I finish talking. Now, she said I will take the top rated ones. That's not really true. What I do is I go through and pick my favorite ones because I'm the speaker and I get to do that. So anyhow, hey, happy Halloween, happy early Halloween. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day. Saw a couple of people from Orlando, Florida, and said it's storming there. Hey, come on down south just a little bit down here in Palm Beach County. It is a beautiful day. Love to have y'all down here. For those of you who don't know, my name is Cal Evans. I've been doing PHP for about 20 years. I installed my very first WordPress install in 2005. I actually went and looked it up. And since then have just thoroughly enjoyed it. I love using WordPress. Matter of fact, the second thing I do whenever I come up with a new idea is install WordPress. The first thing every developer does when they come up with a new idea is, of course, register the domain name. But then the next thing I do is install WordPress and get that up and running. And these days, it's almost always on SiteGround. I have a couple of special needs sites that I still run on my own private server, but I'd say about 75% of the stuff that I have running is now running on SiteGround. And if you were here last month, you learned all about migrating websites, and that's where I learned most of that was from migrating all those websites over to SiteGround, and what a wonderful experience that was. So, enough about me. So, it's Halloween. So let's talk about something scary. Cyber attacks. Look, they're every site owner's worst nightmare. And having your site compromised by a bad actor. And it doesn't matter if they're just trying to prank you. I actually have a client that I work with, and yesterday something went off in the 911 or 911 channel, and they said, hey, the background has changed to this spooky background. And the first thing we thought was, oh my God, somebody has compromised one of the admin accounts and gone in. And all they had done was change the background to this repeating silly little Halloween graphic. Turns out one of our editors click the wrong button. So, but sometimes people just want to prank you. That's their whole point is, they want to put something up on the site just to show that they've been there. But it can get a lot worse than that. Okay. They can install software that serves ads that you don't know about and you're not monetizing to your customers. And they might not be ads that you particularly approve of, or worse yet, they can steal your database. And once they have downloaded your database, they can spend all the time they want trying to crack those passwords and get logins and passwords that they can use to get into your site or to get into other sites. So, the cyber attacks are kind of a scary thing. But there are things that you can do as a site owner to make your site safer. Now, notice I didn't say safe. There's no such thing as totally secure if your site is connected to the internet. Get over that concept. You just won't have that. The idea is that we build security in layers, okay? And we add each layer on top of the next and build it all the way down. And each layer makes your site just a little bit harder to compromise. And if you add enough of these layers, then the bad actor will get to the point where he says, it's just not worth the effort I'm having to put into this site. Let me go to some other site who hasn't watched the videos and don't know to build in layers, and therefore is a lot easier. So that's really what we're trying to do. We're not trying to make your site Fort Knox. We're simply trying to make it difficult enough so that it's not an attractive target. Now, in this talk, I'm going to show you 4 different types of attacks, and we'll talk about each one, and then we'll talk about some ways that you can add a layer of security on top of your site to help protect your site from this particular layer. So, without further ado, let's jump right on in. Brute force attacks. Now, Brute force attacks are exactly what they sound like. It's just somebody hammering at your site. Brute force attacks are usually somebody just trying to log in over and over and over, trying different combinations. This is what we call script kiddies. A lot of these are not sophisticated attackers. They are some Yahoo has gotten a hold of a script that will do this and just try different attack or different logins and different passwords until they get to the point where one of them works. Now, if you are one of the 0.5% of the population of the earth that uses a different password and login for each site, that makes it a lot harder for these script kiddies to get into your account. If, on the other hand, you're like the 99.5% of the rest of us and you've reused logins and passwords, well, this is why you don't do that. As soon as somebody compromises one site and gets that login and password, well, they know that's valid for one site. Why not try it on every site that they're looking at? So script kiddies are your worst nightmare. Script kiddies usually aren't looking to do damage. They just want to, it ranges everything from, like I said, pranks to, hey, let's see if I can do this, to, let's see if we can serve ads or do something more nefarious with that. Now, script kiddies do what we call dictionary attacks sometimes. Now, a dictionary attack is where you simply try different words literally out of the dictionary, trying to log into the site. And you can tell dictionary attacks because they're just one right after the other. And if you're watching your log files, you'll see the rejects and you'll see them in alphabetical order usually, because they're not very creative. They don't try to hide the fact. They're just trying to do this as fast as possible. And one computer can try this pretty darn fast. They can keep hammering at your site, which is another attack called a DDoS. And we'll talk about DDoSes in a little bit. But dictionary attacks are the reason that we don't use words for our passwords, okay? And when I say words, I mean even combinations of words, because dictionary attacks have gotten sophisticated enough to use common combinations of words. Of course, the number one password is still 123 password. We never, ever want to use any combination of that. Used to be we could get away with what we call leet speak, which is where we replace certain letters with numbers and it looked real cool to the script kiddies. But these days, those are included in the common ones are included in your dictionary attacks already. Dictionary attacks can go on for days, especially if you're not paying attention. Okay, and the dictionary attacks can, they can just keep going until they find credentials. And even once they find working credentials, they'll keep going because they've got a whole list. They want to see what else they can get, because maybe they've got one of your users, but that doesn't give them admin privileges. So they'll just keep going until they find them that find valid accounts or valid credentials. Then there's credential stuffing. Credential stuffing is, hey, this login and password worked on site A. Let's see if it works on site B, because we know that it's a valid combination. Somebody uses this. This is why we don't reuse logins and passwords across your sites, okay? Credential stuffing is one of the easiest script kiddie attacks, okay? Let's talk a little bit about password strength. On average, a hacker can brute force a 6-character password in 37 minutes. Okay, so if your password is only 6 characters, it takes about 37 minutes for them to figure it out. Now, this is offline. This is not cracking it using trying to log in. But if they've got a list of passwords that are encrypted, then a 6-character password takes about 37 minutes. A 7-character, 22 hours. As you can see, that one character makes a big deal. You can read all those all the way down to a 10-character password takes 116 years. Now, a 10-character password a couple of years ago, when I was looking at these same stats, would take many centuries. Computing power gets faster every day. So while this might be true today, it might take 116 years to crack a 10-character password. Next year, that might be down to 50 years. And the year after that, it might be down to 6 months. Okay. It gets faster and faster. It also depends on the hardware. Don't know if you know it or not, but graphics cards, one of the reasons that they are difficult to get, other than the fact that Bitcoin miners use them, but hackers use them, or bad actors use them to help crack passwords, because graphics cards are very good at math, and so that's why they're used for this. This assumes these are totally random passwords. Also, how many of your passwords are just totally random strings of characters? Now, here's a hint: they should all be, but most of us don't use totally random scripts. Passwords. We use words and combinations of words, and this just makes it that much easier for the bad actors to crack our passwords. Now, the obvious lesson I want you to take away from here is that every password you have that's an admin password for one of your websites should be 20 random characters. Okay. My buddy Bud Mance was talking earlier in the chat about the fact that he uses LastPass. Use a password manager. That's fine. Okay. But get those long random strings as your admin passwords, because you don't want people to be able to get into the admin account, or you want to make it as difficult as possible to do that. Yes, WordPress has salts, what we call salts, built into it, so that passwords are not stored in clear text in the database. They have to be decrypted, but a 6-character password can be decrypted in 37 minutes right now. So it's just not going to take that long. If somebody has one of your encrypted passwords, it's not going to take that long for them to guess a 6-character password. A 20-character password, it's still going to take a long time. Even 2 or 3 years, it's still going to take a long time. And since we don't have to remember that these days, since technology is our friend, then we can let technology handle this problem for us. Back over here. Okay, so here's what you can do to stop all brute force attacks right in their tracks. Limit failures. Wouldn't it be wonderful if in life we could simply set limit failures on, and we just, once we've failed 3 times, boom, we can never fail again? I wish that were true, but it is at least true in WordPress. My buddies that are sponsoring this, SiteGround, have released a plugin called the SiteGround Security Plugin. It is free to use and can be used on any site, whether you're hosted on WordPress or hosted on SiteGround or not. Does not require any of SiteGround's functionality to work. But one of the cool features of that is the limit failures, and it comes as a default. It says to 5. So after an account tries for 5 times and it fails, it locks that account. I think the first time it locks it for an hour. And then the second time it'll lock it for 2 hours, and then 4 hours. And you see how this builds. Eventually it gets to the point where the bad actor just can't use that account anymore, so they have to move on to something else. Now, me personally, I set these because my sites, usually it's just me logging into the site, but I'm the admin. I set this to 2. If I fail more than twice, it will lock me out of my account. Okay, and I can go in manually. I can SSH in and unlock my account, or I can wait till it times out and then fix it. But quite honestly, if I don't know the admin password to my account and I can't get it right within 2 times, something's wrong. So I'm very, very paranoid about this. So I usually set that, if it's just me logging in, I just set the limit failures to 2. But that's an easy way. That stops all brute force. It stops your script kiddies. It stops your dictionary accounts, your credential stuffing. All of this, just set the limit failures. Don't skip out on the password length. Okay, you still need long passwords, but this is one real easy and free way that you can stop the brute force attacks. So let's talk about the one that strikes fear in everyone's hearts, malware. Now, I'm talking specifically about malware that gets installed on a WordPress site, okay? The end goal can be anything from, I've seen malware that has a JavaScript payload that just displays ads for to my people that are viewing my site. Just pops up an ad. And it's usually not an ad that I would approve of anyhow. they call you know what PPC is, pay-per-click. Well, for malware, PPC is porns, pill, and casinos, because those are the three big ones they do this with. So if somebody gets a chance to install some kind of malware on your site and you started seeing pop-ups for one of those three on your site, well, you know what's wrong. And they're usually pretty good about hiding. So if you're logged in, they're not going to show it to you. But if you go from a different login, or you go from your phone and you see an ad all of a sudden pop up and it's not an ad you put on your site has been compromised. In some cases, though, backdoors are installed that allow bad actors to do things like create new WordPress accounts or upgrade existing accounts to administrator, all the way up to installing accounts on your underlying operating system, and that allows the bad actors then to log into your server, and they have direct access to the entire server. Malware attacks usually attack or exploit weak passwords or stuffed credentials. And once they have access to your machine, they can also download your entire database, take it offline, and start cracking those passwords so that they can use those for credential stuffing later on. So, that's a huge problem. One of the other things that has come up in the past few years is malware that installs software on your server, not part of WordPress, but installs software on your server to do crypto mining. And you might think, oh, well, that's harmless. It's not screwing up my site or anything. But they're using your resources and you're not getting anything for it. And eventually, if your hosts notice that your resources have gone from 1% to it's always at 100%, they're going to come knocking at your door saying, hey, you might need to upgrade because you're doing too much. And you're like, well, I'm not doing anything I haven't been doing. That might be a problem. One of the problems with malware is once you do find that you have malware installed, you have to bring your site down and restore from a backup that is old enough that it doesn't have the exploit they used to get in. And that's a real tricky question. You have to figure out how they got in so that you can figure out where a backup point that will work for you. And I've got, I think SiteGround has, I don't know if they've published a video, but I've got another video that I just did for SiteGround, talking about more in-depth security things. And we talk a lot about backupping. I'm gonna talk a little bit now, but we talk a lot about backing your system up and the fact that you should have online 30 days. But then offline, you should have 1 month checkpoints for 6 months back. Because that gives you 6 months that you can go back and say, okay, I can install from 6 months ago, and I might lose a lot of data and a lot of articles and order details and stuff like that. But that's not a compromisable site. And then you can bring everything up to speed, add the data back in. The easiest way to detect malware is to install a malware scanner, okay? There are several good plugins that will do this for you. None of them do it for free. Don't trust anybody that says, hey, I'll scan your site for malware for free, because chances are what they're gonna do is they're gonna install malware on your site, and then they're gonna tell you, oh, you're clean. No, we've checked it. We check it every day. Don't do this. Don't fall for this. It's an old scam. SiteGround has a malware scanning service. I run it on every one of my sites. It just runs every day and says, hey, we don't notice any of the existing malware signatures that we know of. And so they scan it for me every day. They send me a report once a week, says, hey, you're clean. There are some other good ones. If you don't want to do it at that level, if you want to use a plugin, there's some other good ones out there. Every one of them are going to cost you. And really, the only way to select the proper one, oops, sorry about that, is to figure out which options you want. And you figure out which options are important to you, and that's the proper one for you. I'm not going to mention any other names because there's so many of them out there, I would miss somebody's favorite. But get a malware scanning software is something that if you're making money with your site, or if you're storing sensitive information about people, then malware scanning is something you need to have running on your site. Okay, phishing attacks. Now, there's several different types of phishing attacks. I'm going to list a few of them later on, but they all work basically the same. Someone sends out an email that looks like it's from your site to someone that they think has access to your site. The user reads the message and it says, click here to log in. I've seen everything from we've frozen your account, click here to log in and unfreeze it, to we owe you $100 in a refund, click here, log in, and claim your refund. Doesn't matter how they do it, but they're always compelling messages, and they always look like they came from your server. It's very easy to fake emails. So they send it to your users. Your users look, and the URL on the email says, oh, that's coming from Cal's site. So they click it without knowing that what is actually shown there is not actually the URL. It's just what they put as the URL. The user clicks, and it takes them to a web page that looks like a login page. And the user says, oh, well, let me log in. They enter their credentials. Well, it's not really a login page. Now, the smart bad actors pop up another page and say, hey, those are the wrong credentials. Try again. Well, I just put in my password. I know that was my password. Well, they've already recorded that password, but they want to see how dumb you are. So they will show it to you again. And you say, well, maybe I'm using this password. No, that's not. It usually takes 3 or 4 before people start catching on and actually look at the URL and go, hey, that's not Cal's website. But by that point, you've put in 3 or 4 valid sets of credentials. And these might be credentials that you're using on other sites. So now they have credentials. Not only do they have the credentials to get into your site, but they also have credentials that they can use for credential stuffing at other sites. They know they work one place, and maybe they'll work elsewhere. That's phishing in a nutshell. Now, email phishing, that's the biggie, okay? And email phishing for your users is pretty easy to stop, because all you have to do is mouse over that URL, and all modern email clients will expand and say, this is the actual URL. And if it's not the exact domain that I expect it to, I'm not going to go, okay? But email phishing is the easy one. Spear phishing, that's a targeted attack against a specific user. If I wanted to get the admin credentials to your site, and I knew you were running that site, I knew your email address, then I would send you an email that says, oh my God, we've detected malware on your site. Click here to log into your site, and we'll show you how to clean it. Well, that's going to panic most people that don't know that this spear phishing happens, and so they might try it. And as soon as you enter your credentials, they've recorded it, boom, game over, okay? The only thing you can do is go change your password and hope you got to it before they did. Because if they got to it first, they've probably already set up their own admin account or something even worse. Vishing, a fake phone call, okay, with someone you trust, that looks like it's coming from someone you trust, your bank or your cable operator or something like that, asking you to log in, or worse yet, saying, hey, we've detected some anomalies in your account, but we need to make sure it's you, so can you give us your password? Actually, my phone provider is Verizon, and I was griping at Verizon on Twitter one day, and they said, oh, DM us. I said, okay, fine. So I DM'd them, and they said, well, go and try this. And I went and tried that, and I said, let's try this. And they said, well, we need your password to get into your account. And I said, nope, game over, because real, honest-to-God companies will not ask you for your password to log into their own website. And if somebody does, that is a huge red flag. So, and then there is one that I just love the title for this, and that's why I put it in there, whaling. Whaling is a version of phishing where it looks like the CEO of the company you work for, and this only works for big companies, okay? If it's just like, my company is me and my wife, okay? Whaling's not going to work for us because she knows if I send her an email. But on big companies, it looks like the CEO has sent out an email and has let you know that you need to go change your password right now because the company's system has been hacked. And here's the link. You don't have to use the bookmark or anything you've got. Don't click this link right now and go change your password. That's whaling. Okay. It looks like it's coming from a source you trust, so people don't pay attention to it. So there are ways to protect your site, though, from phishing. Now, the technologies are SPF, DMARC, and DKIM. And the reason I don't have all of these listed here on the screen and give you instructions is setting these up requires that you understand what the domain name system is, how it works, and how to set up records in there. The good news is almost all top tier hosts, and I know for a fact that SiteGround does, sets these up for you when you set up your domain. So if you're using SiteGround to handle your email, then you've already got SPF, DMARC, and DKIM already set up. And what these do is these allow an email program to look at the email and say, I know that this came from Cal Evans, not just it says it came from Cal Evans, because Cal Evans has said this is where all my emails come from, and this one came from that server. Or it allows it to say Cal Evans says all of his emails come from this server, but this one came from this server, so I don't trust it, and it will literally mark it. Google will flag them. These days with DMARC or with DKIM, you actually have the option of saying quarantine any email you get that doesn't match these credentials. Don't even give it to the user, just hold it aside. And most of the time, you as the site owner will get an email with an XML file attached that gives you all the details, and there are sites that you can buy access to that will give you a rundown of all this. They'll collect them all for you and give you a report every week that says this is what is going on with your email system. I don't use any of those, but if you're doing an awful lot of emailing, especially with mailing lists and stuff like that, it would be good to look into one of those services. If you're using something like MailerLite or any of Aweber or any of the good mailing list services, you want to make sure that you update your DMARC and DKIM to allow emails from those systems to be marked as legitimate also, okay? Because basically the way these work is you have to tell it emails can come from these domain names or these servers. So that's a little more tricky, but thankfully, if you're with a top tier host like SiteGround, all you have to do is pop up and go into support and say, hey, I need to do this, and they're going to walk you right through it. Or you can hire a developer, okay? If it's important to you, make sure you have a developer on staff or on retainer. They can usually handle this. I mean, I can set up DKIM and SPF in about 30 minutes. It's just not terribly difficult, but it is daunting to someone who doesn't understand how DNS works. And I've been working with DNS for more than 20 years. So, hire somebody that can help you with it if you don't want to mess with support or you want absolute control over it. Okay, how are we doing? 11:30. Okay, good. DDoS. DDoS actually comes in two forms. You have DOS, denial of service, and you have DDoS, distributed denial of service. And DOS is one computer is attacking your server, and it is basically making web requests fast enough so that your server starts to slow down. These days, you don't see a lot of DDoS because it's hard to attack one of the major systems with just one computer. So they now have DDoS, distributed denial of service. And distributed denial of service is, it's a pain because with DOS attacks, I can see that this one person is trying to load, or this one IP address is trying to load page over and over and over again. So I can block that one. But with DDoS, they might have 1,000 or 100,000 different computers in their network, all making one request. Well, it's very difficult to determine or to tell that from just normal traffic. So you can't just go and start blocking everything. Caching helps mitigate DDoS attacks. There's no way to totally get rid of them, but we can mitigate them with good caching and good low-level network detection. And a lot of the top-tier hosts like SiteGround have their own systems that says, this does look like a distributed denial of service attack, so I'm going to start limiting what this one IP address can do. Or they'll send that IP address a response back before they even get to your website that gives them a CAPTCHA and says, before you can visit this website, you've got to perform this CAPTCHA. And if there's a person behind it and they're actually looking for your website, they'll do the CAPTCHA and boom, it's gone. They let them into the site. If it's just a script, the script doesn't know, so it can't perform the CAPTCHA, so they automatically just block that IP address for 2-3 hours. Most top-tier websites have DDoS mitigation systems built into their network. They operate lower down the network stack than you can normally get to. You can ask your web host, and they will tell you if they have it in place. Don't expect them to tell you what they have in place. Most of the time, this is kind of a closely guarded secret. They don't want bad actors to know what they're doing or how they're detecting this stuff, so they don't talk a lot about the details. But they will tell you if they have DDoS protection or not. Now, if you're not with a top-tier host that has these systems in place, and you aren't utilizing a service that does caching, you are vulnerable to DDoS attacks. And if somebody decides they want your website shut down, and these days that can be for any number of reasons, they can do it. I've seen sites be taken offline with a DDoS attack simply because the attacker wanted money. And we're just going to attack your site and bring it down until you pay us. That's the easy one to understand. The good news is these type of attacks aren't like malware or brute force where they get into your site. These are external attacks. You can't leak your users' data or anything. Now, I know that doesn't help a lot when your system is down for days at a time, but at least you got that going. So we've talked about 4 different types of attacks. And I've talked a little bit about how to stay safe. Let's run down a couple other things you can do. I told you I was going to talk about backups. Backup regularly. And the thing you need to do with backups is you need a nightly backup of everything on your site, and it needs to be stored somewhere other than the server that your site's on, okay? And this is for 2 reasons. Number one, if your site gets compromised, then they automatically have access to your backups. And there's nothing to keep them from unpacking these backups, or injecting the code in the backup and zipping it back up so that without you knowing it. So, but also if your server gets hit by a natural disaster and the entire region is taken out, if all of your backups are on that server, you're down. I used to run my family's website, and we had a site there in Mobile, Alabama. It was hosted there in Mobile, Alabama. We got hit by a hurricane. Now, I was up in Nashville, Tennessee, living up there, but they got hit by a hurricane and the entire site was offline. Well, all I did was pull up one of the backups that I had stored in Delaware, brought it online, spun up a new temporary account on one of the servers, put it back up, repointed the DNS, and we were back up and running in about 2 hours. The power was still off at the shop, and it was off for 2 weeks, if I remember correctly, but the site was back up and running. So you want those backups regularly, and you want them off-site. 30 days, absolute minimum number of days that you need to keep on hand. I also recommend that you keep locally stored on a USB stick or a hard drive there at your house or your place of business, a checkpoint once a month for 6 months. And when you make December, you delete June's, and you just keep a rolling 6 months, okay? That gives you a little more stability. Second thing you can do is police your accounts. Look at your accounts at least once a week, and especially your admin accounts or any account that has any escalated privilege, and say, do I know who controls that account, and are they still with me? I mean, if you've got accounts that are admin accounts for developers that are no longer with you, get rid of the account, okay? I'm not saying that the developer will come back and log in and do something nefarious. I won't say they won't, but I won't say that that's what's going to happen. But that's just one more account that can be compromised. Get rid of those accounts. Police your accounts. If you've temporarily escalated someone to admin so that they can do something and that purpose is served, de-escalate them. Get them back down to normal. I say this because I saw a website the other day that for a plugin, and one of their features was you can use this via FTP. Never, ever, ever, ever use FTP. FTP sends your login and password clear text over the wire, period. Okay. If you need to use a file transfer protocol, that's what FTP stands for, then use SFTP. Okay. SFTP is secure FTP. It negotiates a secure channel before it sends your login and password over. And it's a much more secure way of doing this. So even if you're on your, I'm here in my house, my fortress of solitude, I have a locked down network, and I still never use FTP either on my local servers or to get anywhere else, because I know that that's just one more layer of security. Never store PPI that you don't absolutely need, okay? Yeah, a lot of marketers like to ask things like, what's your birthday? What was your first dog's name? Where did you grow up? But don't store that in your database unless you need it for the transactions. The reason being is every piece of it's supposed to be PII, sorry. Every piece of PII that you store, personally identifiable information, you are liable for. Now, if you are in Europe, you're a lot more liable. In the US, you can still be held accountable if somebody gets a hold of some information. So never store this stuff in your database. I know it's really easy to throw up a form and have, when people register, ask them all kind of marketing questions and store that in the database so you can report on it. I'm telling you right now, this is a bad idea unless you need that information for the transactions that you do. If your business is sending somebody a birthday card every year, then sure, store their birth date in your database. But if your business is selling car washes and you want to tell your user, hey, happy birthday, store that in your mailing list system, because at that point, it's their problem to keep it safe, not yours. Well, not technically yours, but you're not nearly as liable. Set up a malware scanner. I talked about this. There's several good plugins that you can get that range anywhere from $100 to $500-$600 per year. And the difference in the price is the difference of what they will do to scan and what they will do to help you recover. But if you, at the very least, make sure you have SiteGround. If you're using SiteGround, make sure you have their malware scanner. It is, last time I checked, it was like €17 a year. Okay. Now, all they do is detect, but at least you know if there's a problem. And their security plugin has an option that will download fresh copies of all of your plugins and themes and put them on top. So if you're trying to recover from an attack, you at least got some help in getting at least that far. And that's about halfway at this point. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Okay, two-factor authentication. I haven't touched on this. I'm going to mention it. Two-factor authentication is once you have entered your login and password and WordPress says, yes, I know you, then it also pops up a little box and says, give me your 6-digit code. Google Authenticator, Duo Authenticator, there's several different authenticators that you can install on any modern smartphone, and it will have a time-based code, and they usually last for about a minute, and you have to type in those 6 digits, and then your software says, this is the correct code, I'm going to allow you in or not. Now, if you have it set up and your sister, brother, whatever, neighbor has it set up for your site, and you both try to log in, you're going to get different codes. You don't get the same, it's not the same code just because it's your website. It's unique to your website, your login, and the time. So you're going to get a different code than anybody else trying to log into your system, and you've only got a minute to type it in before it goes away, or 30 seconds, whatever it's set to, before it goes away and gives you a new code, okay? But what this means is if somebody is trying to break in and they have your credentials, if they don't have your phone, they can't get in. Now, the downside is if you lose your phone, then, and somebody knows your login and your password and they have your phone, then yes, they can get in. but that's just one more layer of security. Two-factor authentication adds a layer of friction, so I don't recommend you do it for every account, but the SiteGround security plugin will turn this on for all your admin accounts. And that's really what you care about the most, because those are the people that can do the most damage. I have it set up on about 60-70% of my sites. That and the ones that I don't have it set up are some of my very old and very dumb sites. But those, I have it set up for those, and especially anything that I am selling things on, and I am taking credit cards and doing transactions. I have 2FA set up for all of my admin accounts. I strongly suggest you do it. It is free with the SiteGrounds plugin. There are other plugins that will do it for you. If you're using a security plugin already, it probably has 2FA already in there. You just need to turn it on. But if you don't have anything installed right now to do that, get the SiteGround security plugin, install it. Oh, and get your SiteGround security plugin. It does everything from, it'll scan your directories to make sure that all the permissions are set properly and people can't get in them. It will help you make sure that you don't have an account named admin. Everybody knows that's a bad thing, right? We haven't done that in a long time. But if you've got an old site and you've still got the account admin, install the SiteGround security plugin, go to that option and change it to something else. Because if you don't have 2FA set up, then a bad actor only needs two things to get into your site. They need your login and your password. And if your login's admin, they can guess that. And so they got half of what they need to get into your site already. Okay. So SiteGround security plugin, because it's free. I love the fact that they're giving this away for free. Does not require SiteGround to use it. You can use it anywhere. We've talked about layers. These are, everything I've suggested is a layer on top of a layer. No one thing is going to lock your site down and keep it secure. I take that back, okay? If you turn the server off, physically unplug the network cable and the power cable and go lock that server in a closet and only you have the key to that closet, congratulations, you have a 100% secure server. Of course, it's a paperweight too, because it's turned off and you can't use it, but it is secure. But for the rest of us living in the real world, security layers are what it takes. And I've given you several layers to add on to your site. And each layer just makes it a little more difficult for bad actors to compromise your site, because the goal is not absolute security. That's a pipe dream. The goal is to create a site that is difficult enough so that that bad actor moves on to the next site in their list. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over. I've talked long enough. I know I have, because my throat's now hurting. So thank you all for watching.